Underoos! In today's HitFilm tutorial, we're looking at how to become the web slinger by modifying lightning. Before we dive in, if you're going to follow the transitional portion of this tutorial, you're going to need two shots, one wide and the other handheld. It's important to remember to try and align the two as much as possible to keep this effect smooth. Use key features of the location as reference for what you will match later. With that out of the way, let's get flipping. I have the first part of this effect already set in the timeline. This is the wide shot and main web action. The first thing we'll need to do is track the point for the web shooter's entry. But first, it's always a good habit to look over your footage before beginning a track. Skim the timeline for an appropriate position. For me, I'll be starting at the end of the motion, going back to the start. Go to the new layer icon and generate a point layer. This is where our tracking data will end up eventually. On your footage layer, open the drop down and under track, we'll press the plus icon and HitFilm will open the tracker. Now by using the windows, we'll place them around the area and track. For this shot, as it's a small movement and due to the motion blur, I'll be going frame by frame, manually moving the windows when needed. With this type of shot, we won't be altering the rotation and scale, but bear this in mind if you need the properties for your own pieces. And once happy with the motion, in the layer drop down, find our point and apply to that layer. The first effect we're going to make is the puff of smoke that usually comes from the web shooters as they go off. In the effects window, go into Quick 3D and find Smoke. You can drag this straight onto the timeline as HitFilm will generate a layer. I'm going to alter this in position and scale to the placement I'm after. And let's parent this to our tracking layer before we dive in too deep. By going into the Controls tab and opening the Smoke dropdown, we can begin altering this into a small puff. This may alter for your own work, but we'll raise the density and lower the gravity. Lower the linger and apply some variation. To recreate a burst, we need the speed to be quite high, so I raised mine to 1000, with variation of 1800. The important part, however, is the size value. First, slide the beginning of this layer to the point that you'd like the effect activated. We're now going to keyframe the size to have a rapid spike. So at the beginning of the layer, set a keyframe at the value around 200, and after about 5 or 6 frames, set another keyframe, this time at 0. This creates a small little puff. Let's add a new plane and we'll name this webbing. Under particles and simulation, we'll find lightning and electricity. Apply this to the webbing layer. To save ourselves stumbling around in the dark, let's apply a demolt from the keying effects. Open the lightning dropdown, go into glow, and lower the opacity down to 0. Let's also go into branches and bring the total down to 2. For the position of the webs, we'll be using a tracking point for the beginning while keyframing the end position. Open the start dropdown and set the point values to 0, 0. With that corrected, we can now use the data from another layer. Set this to our tracking point. Skim through to ensure that your lightning is now connected. Open the end dropdown. By using either the point values or the anchor, move it to the location of origin. When aligned, drop down a keyframe. Move forward a few frames on the timeline and drop down another. This time, we'll move the anchor above the frame. This is to appear it's grabbing the top handle of the camera, though as you may have noticed, the web doesn't actually appear to look closer. To solve this, keyframe the width to increase with the motion of the lightning growth. You should now have the basis of our web motion, but now let's make things a little tense with the web. I realized that was creepy. You'll see at the top of our settings we have a wave and twitch scale. By animating these down to 0 alongside our growth, we can give the impression of tension on impact with the camera. On a whole, our web is still looking like lightning, so to add some texture, we'll first start with a fractal noise from the generator folder. I ended up using the solar preset, scaling it down and removing the color, but you may wish to experiment for your own edits. For additional detail, you can go into Stylize and find Solarize. This tool inverts the layer in a unique way, which while experimenting I found to add that extra detail I was after. For even more detail, grab a curves from the color correction panel and crush the colors to bring out the shadows. To help aid in the motion, we'll also apply a zoom blur, which we can find under the blur tools. I ended up using a preset of subtle, followed by a lens blur for additional softening. We'll be faking our camera zoom for the pull, for which we'll be needing a point to act as our master controller for all the layers involved. Go to the new layer icon and select Point, and by pressing F2 on the keyboard, we can rename this Master Controller. Parent the footage and the other tracking point to this controller. No need for the web, as this will follow with a layer it's already connected with. At the beginning of the impact of animation, add a keyframe for the position and scale. Import your handheld footage into the timeline and trim into position. As you can see from my footage, I pulled the camera into this corner, so by using the master controller, I'll now use scale and position to align this as closely as I can to match the framing. This pull is now animated, but let's add more of an impact. Highlight the keyframes and set them to smooth from the keyframe icons above the timeline. With this set, we can now go into Value Graph and increase the velocity of the pull. Select the values and use the handles to create a steep inclined slope. To really increase the sense of speed, activate motion blur to your layers. For a final touch, generate a new grade layer, name it Shake, and under the grunge tools, you'll find Shake. Apply this to the new layer and keyframe the amount to increase and decrease over the course of the motion. You can now do whatever a spider can. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, ring the bell for notifications, and of course subscribe. And remember, there's a reason that Spider-Man wears spandex.
Oh no!